Do a violin piece for you tonight. Not that I'm going to use that, but actually what I'm talking about, God, is this uncomfortable? 15 minutes. Okay, go. I'm okay. What I want to talk to you about tonight is the necessity for reinvention, really at any age, but particularly at my age, which I'm not going to discuss, but if I was a dog, I'd be 2008. So that's all I'm saying. I mean, when we're 20 or 30, in those years, you can pretty much get away with anything. If you're cute and good looking and breed well, you'll get away with it. Then kind of at the late 30s, 40s, after you've taken care of the egg situation, everybody starts to ask you, what do you do? What do you do? As if this represents who you are as a human being. And you better be busy, because nobody wants to know anybody who's not busy. If you go to a dinner party and somebody says, what do you do? And you say nothing, you're deleted right out of the address book. And God forbid, don't talk about your children, because you'll put people in a coma. Then in your 50s, it's not that I am, but I know people. I have friends who are not dead yet. And in your 50s, it gets really sticky, because at this point, nobody really wants to know what you do anymore, because you're supposed to have done it. We don't want to know how well sardines are selling in Kyoto. And if you do go on about your job or your lack of a job, an out-of-work actress, you're killing people with boredom. So at 50, I guess, is a real turning point where you either have to, as somebody said, turn into wine or turn into vinegar. It's the real crossroads. This is a big boy's test. Or some of my friends who have just gone nuts, when they start to collect homeless cats, or move into the country to watch the rain. Yeah, that's fascinating. And, or else, at this particular point, it's just so upsetting, so they just go in denial that they have aged, so suddenly, I know, well, myself, I borrowed my, at 14, we all have to dress, at 50, we all have to dress like we're 14. I mean, I borrowed my daughter's thong, I can't find it. I know it's in there, I'm gonna need excavation teams to go in there. I have no idea, but, and then thanks to certain surgical procedures, some of which I've dabbled in, you can look young for a really long time, even though your insides are rotting. So, so the question is, at 50, you really, really have to start to reinvent yourself so that you don't bore yourself. This is where you really have to put your foot on the pedal. Because unfortunately, we now don't die young, so we have to think of what to do for the rest of our lives. Maybe it was better when we did. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me. Does anybody have water? That's it down there. Thank you. Because me takes much more than 15 minutes, but I'm going to talk fast. So basically, I was normal as a baby. Everybody's the same, you just suck and fill your nappy. What's the big deal? But once you're potty trained, the shit really hits the fan. Because then you have to develop a personality. Fuck it, leave it alone. You have to develop a personality and sort of, represent yourself to the world. And, that's a crapshoot. And the cards you're dealt are based on mommy and daddy's levels of insanity. And my parents were A-listers. They were covered in weirdness dust. Maybe they got some on me, but if you're weird, you're not very popular in high school. You're kind of a loser. So when I went to high school, nobody really wanted to be my friend because my mother, a little bit of a sample, would go around on all fours behind me with sponges embedded in her hands, actually trying to chase a dust ball. and then screaming, "Civilized people don't bring sand in a building." She had that voice that was so humiliating. You know that voice, you order something off the menu, it sounds like you're declaring war on Europe. Like, "Ich habe das Schwein geschlossen, gerotzen, gehackt." People come out of the kitchen with their hands up. So I was not very popular and tortured, actually, by these girls. And I thought, okay, how can I make them say, "We had you all wrong, Ruby. You're a deeply meaningful person and hugely talented." I thought, how can I actually prove them wrong, and my parents? And I thought, and then I came up with it. Get famous. It's a fantastic revenge. Usually, if you scratch the surface of anybody who wants to be famous, there's usually a loser from high school. So I reinvented myself. I created a monster. I came to England, and this is when it was still a Dickensian prairie land. Nothing. There was no Starbucks, there was no ice cubes, there was no hair conditioner. It was a third world country here. It was disgusting. There was no heating. You had to straddle your hair dryer to get through the winter. And the food was unbelievable. It was toad in the hole, not porno. This was food. So anyway, I was here and I thought, okay, I'm going to become an actress. I got hugely fat because I just lived on Alpin. I wouldn't touch any of this crap. So I got myself a wimple. I had no idea how to act, and I went to drama school. And I thought, okay, I gave him Juliet, no idea how to act, but I knew she was upset in the scene. So I actually said out loud when I went to Rada, I was going, "My dog is dead. My dog is dead. My dog is dead." I said it out loud. And then I did one of the most horrible auditions. But I got into school in Glasgow because nobody wanted to go to school in Glasgow. I know it's magnificent now, but then it was like an ashtray with stoplights. So I got in, and then I did tongue exercises for 3 years, la la la, the la la, to get the English accent I have today. Thank you. Thank you. And then I got into the Royal Shakespeare Company because Trevor Nunn liked what I could do with my tongue. And then I played wenches. I spoke early porno and held up a Bo Peep stick. Anyway, from that I went on to writing television with two girls, French and Saunders. No, you never heard of them again. And from there, I got a job on TV because I was so angry. I was funny. That happens. And in the beginning, it was so exciting. It was documentaries about the Ku Klux Klan, or it was, a Christian movement in Alabama where, to prove that God loves them, they throw boa constrictors at each other because they kind of take the Bible literally. Most of them didn't have any fingers, so I guess God didn't like them. And then women it was fascinating. And then suddenly we came into the age of celebrity, and suddenly, okay, fascinating, one. Eventually, it's like eating too much chocolate. Pamela Anderson, I get letters to this day from South America. "Quel grande Pamela Anderson, babazuca, por favor." It's enough. So I got bored. I know, who could believe this? And my eyes started to go dead because I couldn't even interview people that once had a skill. Now it was cooks. Sorry. And people who sell antiques and stylists. This is where I get off the bus. So I started to get kind of depressed. Not that was why I had depression. I always had something wrong with me ever since I was a little kid. I'd go into a kind of like a hibernation but awake. And I guess my mother, who was miserable and howled most of her life, doctors said she was fine. She was just going through the change of life for the last 87 years. So nothing was wrong with us. We were perfectly normal. But gradually I found out that I had clinical depression, which was very embarrassing. You don't mention that in this country, even though 1 out of 4 have it. You've got a whole row. In England now, you can talk about it. You can't just talk about it. Most of you are mentally ill. So I got depression. I was very embarrassed about it. I once saw a headline that said I had depression, and I grabbed it out of somebody's hand and tried to eat it. And then Comic Relief did a little campaign for mental illness, and they took my picture. I thought it was going to be like on a Matchbox. And suddenly I went into the tube station, and my photo was on every corner, gigantic, and it looked like a kind of Lithuanian peasant saying, "I'm depressed." Something. So I threw myself on one of the posters, but then there were more, and I kept throwing myself. There were too many, so I became the poster girl for mental illness. Thank you. If anybody wants to be mentally ill, you'll have to come through me. So anyway, I became very ill about 2 years and 7 months ago, and I said, when I get out of here, I'm going to change my life, because clearly I was allergic to something. And I even wrote myself a little contract with this woman here. Do you remember? Yeah. She wrote a contract saying, I will never touch showbiz again. Well, I'm up here, so I kind of did it. So I said, okay, so I decided to go back to what I originally was interested in, which is psychology. And went to, because I had gone to Berkeley, because I needed to get back my brain cells. So I went from Pamela Anderson to brains. Give you a few minutes to think about that. And I learned about, I am actually interested in literally the brain, because that's the mothership, and I found it fascinating. So I crashed a course at UCL. I just told all these 21-year-olds I had a skin disease, so I'd fit in. And then, and I just became fascinated with it, but I kept thinking, why am I doing this? People would say, why aren't you on television anymore? Because I'm nuts, okay? So I became interested, and it's so interested that even though I was a total write-off in high school, my parents' fault, but I was very good at piercing ears in the girls' toilet. I just want to say, in 2 weeks, I'm starting my master's at Oxford University. So there you go. Thank you. And thanks, yeah. Boy, am I going to fit in. And, but, it was kind of an agony, because there was a death of one thing. It did feel like death, but only when you die is there a kind of a rebirth. And now, suddenly there's a little bit of self-respect, whereas I really did feel like a whore when I was on TV, because it isn't me. Graham Norton's Graham Norton. I was just putting on a front to get a lot of people back. I mean, it worked and it was lucrative, so don't get me wrong. But I'm actually feeling more like a human being now, and I don't look around when I'm on the tube at who's looking at me. That shows I'm over the disease of fame. So I'm going to try and combine that with what I love, which is standing on a stage. So hope you don't mind me saying this, but February 14th, my friend and I go into the chocolate factory with a story that's very funny and very dark about mental illness. So I put the two in bed together, and that's where I am today. As long as you use your brain and you're interested in novelty, those cells just keep going. So age becomes irrelevant. And if you lose your curiosity, then you're almost as good as dead. So just keep it going, and maybe when I leave Oxford, I'll become a trapeze artist. So thank you very much.